Top stories this hour. Musa parents protest after over 100 days of captivity as 36 Lhasa students also remain abducted. FCT police boss orders DPOs to arrest and prosecute hard drug suppliers or face transfer. Liberia's former Vice President Joel Howard Taylor faces drug trafficking and money laundering charges. Details in a moment. Parents of abducted Musa school children have taken to the streets of Uba, demanding the federal government expedite the release of their children kidnapped over 100 days ago. The children, including toddlers, were abducted on May 15, 2026 from their classrooms in their community located on the fringes of the dreaded Sambisa forests. In addition to the Lhasa abduction, where 36 students and a teacher are still in captivity. The prolonged captivity has triggered anger and frustration among parents and community leaders who say they can no longer wait silently for the return of their children. News Central's Umaru Kira joins us live as parents of the Musa abducted children are protesting, demanding urgent action from the authorities for the rescue of their loved ones. Umaru, I'm sure you've been covering this latest development. What's the latest in the community?
Well, the latest is that the families, or rather the parents of the abducted Musa children and toddlers are still in Uba, and they said they will not go back home until their children have been rescued alive and peacefully. And that has been the major call of the parents since in the morning when they arrived from Musa to Uba, the headquarters of Askira Uba local government area. They were able to meet the chairman of the local government council, Mada Saidu, and the emir of Uba. However, they had discussion with the parents, advising them that they should be patient, that they will keep pushing to the government to ensure the rescue of their children. But unfortunately, the parents are insisting that government have to take serious measures to ensure the rescue of their children. And if you can see behind me, you will see these are all the parents of the abducted children of Musa. Although I tried to talk to some of them to talk to us, unfortunately they said some of them they cannot speak for now because of the tense and because of the situation they find themselves. And this is the situation. Bring back our children is the key message for these families here in Uba, headquarters of Askira Uba local government area of Borno State.
You just confirmed that they met with the local government chairman. Specifically, what did he say? Are there assurances that the kids will be returned pretty soon? And how about the state government? Has there been any concrete thought or maybe statements regarding this issue?
Well, reassurances have been the message that the parents continue to hear. When they met the chairman of the council, he reassured them that government is working. When they met the emir of the area too, he made the same statement. But what they are saying is that they want to see practical solution. They want to see their children come back home. That is what they are after. In fact, some of the parents had to sell their maize, their grains, to get transport money to move out from the village to come to this town. And some of them had to borrow money from other community members to come to this place, and they insisted that they will not leave until their children are back. And that is the key message of all the parents here in Uba.
Right, Umar, just talk us through this area. I'm talking about, the story said it's the fringes of Sambisa forest. Talk us through this area and how difficult is it to secure that particular community?
Well, security is a very serious issue, particularly in this part of the world. Not only Musa or Askira Uba local government area of Borno State, but the whole of Lake Chad. But the good thing is that relative peace is returning to communities. But unfortunately, on the other side of the story, we are seeing children are being kidnapped, sending a very negative message to the communities and, of course, to government and the entirety of the citizenry. But the prayers and hope of every parent here is that their children will be back alive. But they are going through very difficult time. In fact, some of the parents could not even come because they have been hospitalized. Some of them could not go to farm. Some of them, largely, they could not do anything. They are just sitting idle at home, thinking, crying, and the pain continues to increase. And that is why they collectively come out to ensure that the government hears their voice and their voices have been amplified and actions are taken and their children are rescued.
Umaru, many thanks. We truly appreciate your reporting. What we want is that these kids are released and released pretty soon to their parents. Many thanks. We truly appreciate. And elsewhere, the Nigerian government is considering Benue State as one of the pilot locations for its proposed ranching policy. But while the state government says no decision has been made on its part, some residents who spoke to News Central have raised concerns about the plan. They question its implications for land, communities, and the state's existing anti-open grazing law. News Central's correspondent Soese Ayo reports.
The federal government may be considering Benue for its proposed ranching pilot, but the state says it has not yet given the program the green light.
In Makurdi, the reaction from residents was largely against the proposed pilot. For some, the concern is rooted in Benue's experience with farmer-herder conflict and the fear that a ranching program could create new disputes over land and ownership.
Hey, moyam lumunga. Hachuku odo ki ongu ki chajekpa dove wegaya ki na matuma ki yove wulave na dove weye. Gaya yombamba ki chakmamba wanse. Hama sheke va wase hama shechimba wanzanza nya na yo dove wugamba moncha va kpamba wanwe na yo mbla facho ngo tumanya betim se bega.
Pesika hikla ha yo flani ye nyanga si ha yo ave before laga. Hachuku ni kasi ha yo ve ka vi de shi va ngok ve se wase chichana ha. Sekpa semba mchia. Akwala tawe so kan se lumu vo vatuma ke tawe si.
Others say the priority should be enforcing the state's existing law against open grazing and protecting farmers whose livelihoods depend on access to their land.
Before we are here together with the herdsmen, peacefully there's no problem, but later on they started moving with weapons and all of that. For if government say they will come back and be with us, it become problem because they are not empty-handed. When they come, always they come with arms. We will not have land here. As we stand here, there's no any empty space now. Everywhere, farming and all houses are everywhere. Even we that we have here, we are here. The land is not sufficient for us. So if they come, I don't know where they will stay.
For another resident, the question is not simply whether cattle should be kept in ranches, but who decides where such facilities are established and whose interests they serve.
If you bring Fulani people here, the only thing you're giving them is an entrance and an excuse to say, nah, their land. Do you understand? And then the reality is that at the end of the day, this is not supposed to be a government conversation. It's not, there should be reparations. The people who should approach Benue, not be the government, it should be the Fulani people themselves should come, apologize for what has been done, and then come into dialogue with the Kyiv people about how we can meet in the middle.
But what does the law say? Benue's Open Grazing Prohibition and Ranches Establishment Law, enacted in 2017, prohibits open grazing while providing a legal framework for ranching.
Now the law has made provisions for ranching. But what the law does not allow is for somebody to buy land and ranch. You have to lease from the farmers. And when you lease the land from the farmers, you pay them the lease fee, you pay the government for the permit, and you do your ranching. You make your profit. The government takes its revenue from the permit fee. The owner takes his money from the lease fee. You do your business. And when you are your business falls up, or when you are through with your business, you carry your cattle and go, leave the man his lands, and leave the place intact.
So the key questions now are, what exactly is the federal government proposing? Where will the ranches be located? And can the plan work within Benin's existing legal framework?
It is impossible now because of the population to come and start tracing grazing reserves that you are going to convert them into ranches. By the way, it is illegal. It is illegal for government to take private lands and make it into ranch for other people to come and do their businesses there. So it is impossible. It is unconstitutional. It's illegal. They cannot do it. Because the land is scarce. So we cannot afford to do that. Again, the president cannot come into Benue and take land and make it into a grazing reserve or a ranch. For who? Is it for government? Is it for the Fulanis? The Fulanis are private people. If they want, they can come and follow the law, the Open Grazing Prohibition and Ranches Establishment Law, and make their business according to the tenor of the law. And when they finish, they can go back. But we are not surrendering our lands to acquisition.
The Benin State government says it is technically reviewing the federal government's proposal through the Bureau of Livestock Development and Transboundary Animal Diseases Control. It says stakeholders and institutions will be consulted before the state takes a formal position.
My best advice to the government, if it is a state government, the governor holds the land in trust for the people of Benue State. It is not his land, it's the land of the people, and he can only deal with it according to the interest of the people of Benue State as enshrined in the Land Use Act. You can only give out land belonging to the people for overriding public interest. Taking land from the people to give it to Fulani herders is not an overriding public interest.
For now, the disagreement is not simply about whether ranching is a viable livestock management system. It is about how it will be introduced in Benue, where it will take place, who will control it, and whether it will address, rather than deepen, existing tensions over land and livestock. In Benue, for News Central, Sewese Anyo.
The conversation on ranching in Nigeria is as old as I am, I guess. But we will talk a little bit more about it. But we have two guests in the studio, one virtually, Azari Yusuf, former coordinator, Middle Belt Patriot, joins us alongside Jonathan Asake. He is a former member, House of Reps, immediate past president, Southern Kaduna People's Union. They will be speaking to these issues, whether they will some way solve this problem of the farmers' headers clashes. That's next, after this. Welcome back. This is the 6th edition here on News Central. And like I teased you earlier about the ranch that is being proposed by the federal government in Benue State, we have two guests, Zara Yusuf in the studio, former coordinator, Middle Belt Patriot, and Jonathan Asake, former member, House of Reps, immediate past president, Southern Kaduna People's Union. Let me start with Zara Yusuf in the studio. You know, this issue, it looks like it wouldn't really go away because every single government that have coming since 1999 have had something to do with ranching. And it's clearly because of this farmers' headers clashes that we've continuously seen. If you look at the middle belt, as it were, for you as someone who has followed this story, do you think that introducing ranching would in some way stop, or better still, maybe reduce these incidences of farmers' headers clashes?
No, it won't. I think, let me try to build your question in a different way. Is there a chance that, for instance, somebody who is either Nupe or Ethic running a poultry farm, we suddenly decide that that particular ethnic group, that private business, we pick it up, we make it a liability on the commonwealth of other people? What is the relevance of doing that to the matters of security? And that basically is the problem we have. It's not whether or not ranching would stop insecurity. It's why is it the business of the government? It's somebody's private business. So there is an unfortunate culture where people, it's not different from the Almajiri system. I mean, we just learned when they went to look for 8 billion for some road construction that there was the existence of some Almajiri commission. Why? It's a family issue. You can't afford to raise certain kids, then don't give birth to them. But why do you push them to the streets and expect the government to take all the people's resources to raise them? So it's a similar issue with the cattle ranching. That's from that perspective. The choice of those particular locations in the Middle Belt that they want to use as pilot, areas for the implementation of this raises more questions than answers. In these areas are people who, some for over 10, 12 years, have not gone back to their homes because an Islamist group that is primarily composed of Fulani people who have always claimed to be innocent herders have sacked those communities. In each of these areas, we have hundreds of communities that are still uninhabited. Okay, so you may find 2-3 people running their cattle around. What should be the priority of the government? Do you resettle the people first? And do you teach these ones who grow and believe that their business is just to rear cattle at the expense of other people's resources, other people's commonwealth? You educate them to let them know you want to rear cattle. It's a private business. Okay? So when I settle in a location, I want to raise birds. I meet the locals, I meet the people, and I say to them, this is the business I hope to do. And they say, oh, actually, you can't do it here, but you could go over there, you could buy land, or we could lease. That's fine. But what happens when it has to do with raping women, sacking communities, killing people, and then somebody tells you that the only way to solve that is by taking land from the same victims and giving it to the people perpetrating those criminalities? So what is basically happening, or the implementation, if the government goes ahead to implement that, which I hope it doesn't even attempt to do so, it will be complementary to basically whatever it is these people, these killers have been pursuing from a long time ago, which is basically expansionist and nothing else.
Jonathan, I don't know if you can hear me, but I mean, government has all the paraphernalia of information. I mean, it must have done its research to be able to gather that ranching is the way forward. Do you share that sentiment?
Honestly, I don't share that sentiment. And this is not the first time I'm making my observations public on this issue. It appears governments, successive governments, right from the time of Buhari until now, are bent on taking land from native owners and allocating same to Fulanis. You see, there was this thing that they call national grazing reserves. And one grazing reserve, as an example, was cited in Kaduna State, in fact, specifically in the southern part of Kaduna, in Kachia and Zangon Kataf. They call it Kachia Grazing Reserve. And that grazing reserve was supposed to be exclusively for rearing of cattle, not a settlement for any people. And the rearing of cattle was supposed to be for anybody who is into that business, not only Fulanis. But as I'm talking today, that grazing reserve has metamorphosed into a big settlement exclusively for Fulanis.
Okay, we would reconnect with Jonathan when we have his network cleared. But you see, you've mentioned some points stating that, well, maybe the government should not be involved in this. What difference would it make, for instance, if individuals or group decide that they just want to acquire land to do ranching? Would it make any difference?
Yeah. So in that regard, basically the dealing will be respectful because it's a private business, so nobody would have a problem with anybody running his private business. An example is you've got industries or factories run even by foreigners in different parts of the country. Nobody has ever had issues with
the federal government actually opening the ranches and handing over to people.
Not
is that what the issue is?
Specifically to Fulani.
I mean, you can't really say specifically.
No, it
Fulani
is.
Because
it is.
How do you know that?
It has strictly been the pursuit of the Fulani power players in the government. An example is during Buhari's regime, he kept switching the names of that from Ruga to water resources bills to whatsoever. The whole and the question is, in, I think, 2017, autumn, when you know, open grazing was banned in Benue, Ganduje offered, I think, over 20,000 square kilometers of land. I think 20, So, and he called them, come, I will put schools, I will put amenities, you would live comfortably, you would rear your cattle. They rejected it. Okay? They rejected it. They said they don't want it. And the reason they don't want it is because there are Tiv people in Kano, there are Yoruba people in Benue, there are this, everybody could live anywhere, but they don't want it. Now the question is, why do they want the same thing in the regions where security, a genocide has been on, and the people believe there is something expansionist, which is basically what has been happening on the plateau, in Benue, in southern Kaduna, all of these regions, they said. Why do you need the middle belt for that?
I'm kind of curious, though, because again, if you look at the government in the past and the government now,
yes,
you think that maybe one of them would think that, you know, ranching might not be the best. But they are going the same direction, and they are in government. They have research. They have researchers.
The truth is, you know, from the report, I think the minister of livestock ministry or whatsoever presented that as a proposal to the president. That's a Fulani man. So by default, their ethnic and religious inclination to their pursuit of their expansionist agenda is basically what he hopes to use state powers to basically do, because you don't come to a place where the people have not gone back to their homes yet, because the people you want to give the land to have been killing them. Of course, it's not every Fulani man who kills, but we know who does the killing. It hasn't stopped. It's increasing. Communities are sacked. The people whose land you want to take are in IDP camps, and you want to start implementing that on the plateau and all of that. So it's, like I said, while we may not actually come out and say, it is this ministry or this particular individual that sponsored this, but we could say that the action is complementary to the pursuit of this Islamist who want to sack those communities and occupy them.
Zari Yusuf, many thanks. We truly appreciate it. This is an ongoing conversation. I'm sure that we would unravel more of this as we go on.
Yeah.
And we also appreciate Jonathan Asake, is a former member, House of Reps, immediate past president, Southern Kaduna People's Union, even though his connection was, you know, pretty poor. But many thanks. We truly appreciate you both for the insight. We're headed for a short break. When we get back, 11 years of signing peace accord, how much of that really changed in our elections? That's next, after this. For 11 years, Nigeria's political leaders have repeatedly pledged to pursue peaceful elections and respect the democratic process. The journey began in 2014 with the establishment of the National Peace Committee ahead of the 2015 general election. The first National Peace Accord was signed in January of 2015, with candidates committing to peaceful campaigns, respect for opponents, and the rule of law. The agreement was renewed in 2019, while two more accords were signed ahead of the 2023 elections in September 2022 and February 2023. But despite these commitments, political violence remains a concern, with more than 200 violent political events involving party members and supporters recorded in the 12 months before the 2023 poll. With another peace accord signed in August 2026, the question now is, will the 2027 finally turn political promises into peaceful action? With another accord signed in August 2026, the record shows that peace pledges alone cannot prevent electoral violence without accountability before the 2027 elections. Sam Karbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and George Anwayi, Assistant Program Manager, TAF Africa, joins me with this conversation this evening. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me this evening.
All right. I don't know, Sam, can you hear me?
I can hear you, right?
Okay, so let me begin with you, Sam. I mean, after 4 separate peace accords between 2015 and 2023, and with, of course, political violence still recorded ahead of the last election, what concrete enforcement mechanism will make the 2026 accord different from those that came before it?
I would think that the starting point is about what the Constitution says and how the provision of the Constitution is operationalized by the Electoral Act. The Constitution is very clear no political party is allowed to maintain, and use an army of political thugs, meaning that the Constitution specifically prescribed for a political environment that would not discourage people from participating in the electoral process. Mind you, it's a constitutional right for every Nigerian to participate in the choice of the people who are going to occupy public and elective offices. And the starting point is at the campaign rallies. How are the parties organized is prescribed, because the Constitution went as far as saying that any political party that by itself breach any of the conditions for its own registration is capable of being deregistered. So I would think that that's the starting point. And the Electoral Act, in the sections that operationalize Section 227 of the Constitution, that is sections 95 to 97, they made it very clear. And the starting point is, in fact, the responsibility given to the Commissioner of Police of each state to ensure that all political rallies are monitored and more or less controlled by its office to ensure that they are conducted peacefully. The Electoral Act also went beyond that to prohibit what I would call provocative language, a language that is targeted at any part of Nigeria, any religion, and in particular, any political candidate, meaning that intemperate language, provocative language, toxic conduct are all prohibited by Electoral Act. So if you ask me, let's start by the responsibility of the police and the security agencies to enforce those provisions, because it is not just about the political actors, it's about Nigerians themselves.
Sam, if you can hear me, I mean, aren't we already breaching this law already? I mean, I'll come back to you shortly, I mean, to continue with that conversation, but let me switch to George. George, can we really have a realistically peaceful 2027 elections without first addressing the underlying drivers of political violence, including electoral impunity, inflammatory rhetoric, misinformation, and the struggle for political power?
Yeah, you've said it. It's not just about rhetorics. It's not just about yes, signing peace accord is very important. It helps to appeal to the conscience of the political elites, to play by the rule. But it's important that from the political parties, the political actors themselves, they have to see reason, they have to see the need to call to order their followers. They have to call to order the people, that they are leading in the political parties and, of course, as political actors. This is a responsibility upon the political class. Election is not war. If you want to lead the people, you want to govern the people, it's not by force. The people have to exercise their rights. That's what democracy is about. Democracy is about citizens exercising their rights, citizens deciding who lead them through the electoral process. It's important that our leaders understand that what we need at this point is governance, good governance, not just to cling to power, not just to get into offices, have power, and then call the shot. It's about the people. If you realize that democracy is about the people, and it is what the people want that they have at the end of the day, we'll talk to ourselves and we'll talk to our followers and say, no, we don't have to fight. You don't have to, if you have something to offer, then there is no need to fuel violence. Starting from speeches, how political leaders, how candidates speak.
Right.
You know, via the social media, the conventional media. We don't have to speak words that fuel violence.
All right.
You know, that fuel crisis. This is the responsibility on the political class, and we must all, political class, the candidates must really call their people, their followers to order.
All right, George. Let me switch again to Sam Cabo. Sam, you mentioned earlier in monitoring what these political actors say during electioneering campaigns. I'm wondering, really, don't you think we have already, started on a false lane, given that there are some presidential candidates, didn't even show for the signing?
Well, you see, the signing in itself is just symbolic, but the law is there. It's the entire architecture of the campaign by itself, like I have said, is, what would I call it now, prescribed by the Constitution. The Constitution anticipate and more or less prescribe a political environment that would allow every adult in Nigeria who has reached the age for voting to participate in both the campaigns and the entire electoral process.
So you're not worried.
And therefore,
that some presidential candidate did not show up for the signing. I mean, even if it is symbolic, at least let everybody see that the entire presidential candidates of the country, 19 of them, are actually committing to peace while this campaign kicks in.
I agree with you entirely, because that is also, I would, if I'm allowed to say so, is disrespectful to the entire polity for political parties to abstain from that very particular event, because, like I've said, it also has its own constructive significance, because all of the problem we are talking about, it's not just about what the candidates say or what those who climb the podium say, but rather about the conduct of their supporters as well. If a leader of a political party or a candidate of a political party has submitted himself publicly to a peaceful campaign and rallies, that by itself should trickle down to its own followers and more or less given them the, what would I call it, the message, like the gentleman over there said, it shouldn't be a war. It's not a do or die thing. Yes,
absolutely.
Those political actors are desperate to accede to power, because governance, like we know it, is the most lucrative economy. So everybody wants to latch onto it, and that do or die mentality is what we are talking about here. Yes, they say all is fair in politics, but the law has by itself anticipated that and set the ground rules.
Right.
So I would think that what we have here is a balance between what I would call the people's responsibility to what we need, and those who are entrusted with enforcing the law to do their job. Because this is not just about INEC. INEC cannot by itself alone police, control, and more or less
all right, Sam Cabo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, many thanks for your thoughts. George Awai, Assistant Program Manager, TAF. It's a continuous conversation, and I'm sure that in due course we would x-ray this further with a view to finding out more ways to get us off the net as it relates to the elections as we build up to the 2027 general elections. We're headed for a short break. When we return, we'll have the news continue right after this. Still talking politics, former Imo State Governor Rochas Okorocha has dragged Governor Hope Uzodimma before the Federal High Court in Abuja over his bid to contest the Imo West senatorial seat in the 2027 general elections. Okorocha argues that Uzodimma's tenure as governor will expire on January 14, 2028, and he will still be in office when the Senate's election is supposed to have been held in January 2027. He is also challenging Uzodimma's emergence as the APC senatorial candidate, claiming that he won the party's direct primary held on May 18th with 150,780 votes against Uzodimma's 102,158 votes. The former governor is asking the courts to stop INEC from publishing Uzodimma's name as the APC candidate and instead recognize and publish his name. Still in Imo State, the government has pledged its commitment to reducing gas flaring at its Ano gas processing plant in Ohaji Egbema local government area of the state. Officials of the state government during a visit by the presidential media team, the Renewed Hope ambassadors and senior editors say that the plant, which is currently ramping up domestic gas production, is strengthening power supply, boosting tourism and creating jobs. Our correspondent, Alex Obonaya, reports.
The project, the ANOH gas processing plant, is a strong statement by the Imo State government, showcasing its commitment to harnessing available oil and gas resources in the state. With an estimated 200 trillion standard cubic feet of natural gas reserves, the Imo State is home to one of the largest gas deposits in Nigeria and West Africa.
You look at our oil revenue, oil statistics, place it side by side with our natural gas reserves, you will know that this country has no business with poverty. We just need to harness these resources. We are happy that ANO is striving, and we want to just turn the radar on the good work you're doing, your contribution to the economy, but also turn the radar on the good work that is taking place under President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Renewed Hope agenda.
Following a visit by the presidential media team, the Renewed Hope ambassadors and senior editors officials from the processing plant says its benefits to the state has been immeasurable.
The benefits are there. In terms of job creation, definitely we have a lot of community and the state staff in AGPC.
LPG is meant to support the domestic market and also encourages the use of LPG at home by ensuring that people stop cutting wood and cause deforestation in the environment. So that's one of the key objectives that this facility is designed to achieve.
They also add that the plant is working to reduce gas flaring in a bid to protect the environment and generate more income for the state.
One of our products that actually takes flare out of the stream is the production of liquefied petroleum gas, which in the gas stream, by the time we produce LPG, you barely have any flare in the system. So the system is actually designed to be environmentally friendly, in which most of the effluent that you see have nothing to do with contaminating the environment.
Okay, as soon as we finish commissioning, we are going to go to the barest minimum of gas flare, plus or minus -1, -0, -1, that is 0 point, less than 1, sorry. Yeah, so that is what we are doing.
The ANOH gas processing plant is a 300 million standard cubic feet per day processing facility. It commenced production earlier this year and processes lean gas, gas condensate, and liquefied petroleum gas. In Imo for News Central, Alex Ubunaya.
The Federal Capital Territory Police Command has issued a 96-hour ultimatum to all divisional police officers in its area commands to arrest and prosecute hard drug suppliers within their jurisdiction or face imminent transfer out of the area. The ultimatum order was given following a tour by the FCT Commissioner of Police Ahmed Sanusi of the Metro Area Command in Maitama and the Life Camp Area Command to assess operations and provide guidance for effective policing. Liberia has charged former Vice President Joel Howard Taylor with drug trafficking, money laundering, and related offenses in an alleged transnational narcotics investigation. Authorities say Howard Taylor was detained at Roberts International Airport while attempting to leave Liberia, while 3 foreign nationals were charged in absentia. The case follows major cocaine seizures and intensified efforts to dismantle trafficking networks as officials stress that the allegations remain subject to legal proceedings. Prosecutors in the Democratic Republic of Congo are seeking 15 years in prison for former Justice Minister Constance Mutamba over alleged fraud involving $20 million. The funds were meant to compensate Congolese victims of Uganda's military interventions, but prosecutors allege that they were unlawfully distributed to companies and individuals. Mutamba denies the accusations, while his co-defendants' lawyers challenge the prosecution's evidence. The Court of Cassation is expected to rule on September 2nd. Ukraine's State Emergency Service says at least 15 people were killed in overnight Russian strikes across Kyiv. Residential blocks, warehouses, a children's hospital, and a school were also damaged. President Volodymyr Zelensky says shortages of air defense missiles contributed to the casualties. He says Ukraine urgently needs additional interceptors for Patriot systems supplied by Western allies. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that none of the ballistic missiles used in the attack were intercepted. Russia's defense ministry says its forces targeted military facilities and warehouses. Kyiv authorities say emergency crews are continuing rescue and recovery operations in the affected areas. Ukraine is pressing its partners for additional air defense support as Russian attacks continue. Heavy rains have triggered widespread flooding in Thailand's northern Nan province, with floodwaters sweeping through communities and disrupting daily life. Torrential rainfall sent water surging into homes, roads, and low-lying neighborhoods as rivers and waterways rose rapidly across the province. Residents were forced to wade through flooded streets, while emergency teams remained on alert and assessed the impact in affected communities. Authorities say persistent rainfall across northern Thailand has heightened the risk of further flash floods and landslides. Officials are urging residents in vulnerable areas to remain vigilant and comply with evacuation and safety advisories if conditions deteriorate. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here's another look at some of our major stories. Musa parents protest after over 100 days of captivity as 36 Lhasa students also remain abducted. FCT police boss orders ZPOs to arrest, prosecute hard drug suppliers or face transfer. Liberia's former Vice President Joel Howard Taylor faces drug trafficking money laundering charges. Remember, you may send in your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Charles Pius. See you tomorrow.